is going to have, paradigm shift in the society, because education is the backbone for any society. And without wasting much of the time, because Professor V.K. Jain has to go, after that I will say a few words, but let me introduce Professor V.K. Jain as our, first panelist who will speak about this new education policy. Professor Jain is basically our colleague, senior colleague, our mentor, who brought us to this stage. He has done a lot of work in education, science and technology, policy making, UGC and other places. And he is right now basically education policy backbone. We all know that Professor V.K. Jain doesn't need any introduction. He is so famous. He is well known among research and academia. But still, as just 2-3 lines, I will say Professor V.K. Jain was professor in School of Environmental Sciences, the school which is organizing this. Then he became Vice Chancellor of the University. And after that, he is now serving Tezpur Central University. And he is so versatile personality, means in terms of mathematics, stat, question paper setting, all these, very visualized policy making issues he has always delivered, and the policy makers, they believe, they bank on him. That's why I thought of this is the right time, because we have not met. So I thought, let us invite the great personality, our mentor, colleague, and who can deliver basically the facts behind the policy making, new education policy making. So, sir, I welcome you and thank you once again for accepting our invitation to discuss for the benefit of our students, audience. Sir, please say a few words about that, and then I want mine. If you go to attend other meeting, already you have so many engagements. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Kulshrestha, for very kind words. Namaskar, Meenakshi Joshi Saab, and everyone else, from my school and elsewhere. So good to see you all. Anyway, thank you, Kulshrestha Saab. I think you were rather too generous in your comments about me. Nevertheless, I must express my gratitude to be with you guys today for this webinar. As Professor Kulshrestha just mentioned a little while ago, this NEP is a very comprehensive document suggesting changes in academic, administrative, and regulatory framework, or all of them. But the underlying vision which the present government has behind the NEP is that of an India as an emerging knowledge economy, but with Indian values. And at the same time, it also seeks to provide a very sort of holistic personality development to an individual who is passing out from our higher education system. And what the Prime Minister has in mind is that the students, once they get their degrees, they should acquire global competencies, and they should be able to address the local challenges or find the solutions the local problems. So, in a sense, the higher education system is expected to be accountable to the developmental imperatives of our country. And if you remember, Prime Minister very he, in a very emphatic manner, he did say that this education policy is going to, it is in the larger sense. If you look at the larger picture, which the Prime Minister has in mind of Atmanirbhar Bharat, and this NEP is very much a part of that vision of the Prime Minister. Having said that, perhaps Professor Kulshrestha, you can have this NEP on another day, perhaps, maybe some discussion on NEP some other day, but I will just touch upon some of the points which are relevant for the higher education. And most of you who have gone through the document probably know already some of these salient features. To begin with, GER, the NEP envisages a GER of 50% by year 2035. At the moment, the country has, as you know, something close to 26% of GER. Now, to go up to 50%, that's going to be a huge task. There are two ways of going about it. Although this is not spelled out in micro detail in the NEP, but perhaps a huge expansion of the higher education system would be required. Whether more institutions, some reference has been made in the NEP with regard to the so-called multidisciplinary research universities. So one of the prerequisites would be that the number of institutions in the country would go up. Not necessarily the universities, but even the number of degree colleges which are affiliated with the universities, affiliating universities. So that is one part, that the number of institutions would have to go up, and even the existing universities, in order that they increase their enrollment, perhaps they would have to start some new academic programs so that the more enrollment is ensured. So that is one part. The other is something very important, and that is that all institutions should transform into multidisciplinary institutions. But if you look at the most of the good universities in India, and JNU is one example, and I think there are many universities, central universities especially, not so much IITs, but most of them are multidisciplinary these days. And in fact, there has always been a conscious effort on the part of these universities to move gradually from stream-specific academic programs to multidisciplinary programs. So I don't see much of a problem there, but yes, new institutions which would be coming up, so-called Nehrus, they are sought to be multidisciplinary institutions. And the vision regarding the Nehrus is that they should be at par with IITs and IIMs. My take on this is slightly different, that IITs and IIMs are not necessarily the best examples. Yes, they do figure in the top rankings, but I think each university or each institute, whether it's IIT or IIM, has its own character, and they should evolve into an institution which is known for its unique identity, or so not necessarily that we should all model our institutions along the lines of IITs or IIMs. But the other thing which is mentioned in this NEP is that all institutions, irrespective of the newly established university, all of them including these autonomous colleges, they all will have to become multidisciplinary by year 2040. Now, that is a very important change which is going to be there. But since education happens to be a concurrent subject, the state governments also will have to be on board with the central government, because after all, if you have multidisciplinary programs, even in the colleges, obviously you would require more faculty, more infrastructure. So this is going to be a capital intensive endeavor as far as this particular provision is concerned. And with regard to the academic restructuring, I think it seems that the NEP has taken a leaf out of the vocational courses. So there are these multiple exits which are being provided for in NEP, that after 1 year, you acquire certain competencies and therefore you get a certificate. And after 2 years, you get diploma, or after 3 years, you get a degree. So there would be major overhauling of the syllabi, because the syllabi will have to be designed in a manner just like vocational courses, that in the first year you give the requisite competencies which are good enough for you to be awarded a certificate course. I mean, it's not good, and I mean, it's not sufficient that you simply attend some core courses in the first semester or second semester and a few electives, and then you qualify yourself for a certificate if you intend to exit after 1 year. And this brings me to this point of the emphasis in this NEP on skill-based courses, vocational courses. What percentage of these vocational courses or skill-based courses would be embedded in your academic architecture of different programs? That would depend on, that would vary from university to university. But now there won't be any sort of escaping from the fact that specific skills will have to be factored in your syllabi. And one of the another important provisions in this NEP is to do with this B.Ed courses. So, see, institutions like JNU don't have these teaching degree courses, but there are numerous institutions in the country which have this B.Ed program, and there it is going to be a 4-year B.Ed program, 4-year degree. And there is a great deal of emphasis in developing the teachers with requisite capabilities, skills, not only the domain knowledge, but also how to deliver the contents, how to effectively deliver the teaching learning process. So that is another, and of course, some minor provisions like doing away with the MPhil. I think some of us, honestly speaking, we were always in favor of doing away with the MPhil because really doesn't serve much purpose. I think if people can directly go into PhD right after doing the coursework, that's a very welcome provision. Then another important provision in the NEP is with regard to the nature of the universities. So there is not going to be any distinction between let's say a deemed university or for that matter any open university. Their degrees would be absolutely at par with with the regular universities. So this is another important development, and as far as in this context, as far as the digital infrastructure is concerned, because it would require a great deal, because now government's emphasis on online delivery of the courses, at least certain percentage of these courses to be delivered on the digital platform. The digital infrastructure will have to be strengthened across all the institutions. And there is a provision in this MHRD's, there is a provision in NEP that MHRD will have a dedicated cell for this digital infrastructure. And then another provision is that of autonomous colleges. So the new this policy also aims at conferring this autonomous status on many more colleges. So this is another positive development. So these colleges then can decide on their own curriculum and can decide on their own examination and so on. But the other provision, which is very important for the research ecosystem in the higher education institutions, that pertains to this new entity which is going to come up, National Research Foundation. And if some of you who were following the day, the deliberations in the, when this NEP discussion took place, Prime Minister inaugurated the event, and Honorable HRD Minister also spoke. But that day, Vijay Raghavan, who is the Principal Scientific Advisor to PMO, he did mention very categorically that this NRF would have the mandate to fund those research projects which will be which will be carrying out impact-making research, which means that the country has its enormous challenges, right, of development, whether it is in the energy sector, whether it is in waste management sector, water resource management, and what have you. So depending on what is the challenge or problem or an issue being faced by a particular state, the universities would be encouraged to apply for funding for those projects, for those research questions, which would aim at some kind of impact-making research, meaning that either you will have some innovations coming out of that research, which can be used for your, addressing a particular problem. And therefore, this NRF, I think, is a very welcome development. That doesn't mean that DST or DBT or CSIR, they would cease to exist. They will continue to fund, we understand, they will continue to fund the major research projects or whatever schemes they have. But in addition, you will have this National Research Foundation, which will be like an overarching entity, which will have a sort of a holistic view of what are the areas in which the research is to be promoted. So that is again a very important development. There are a host of other minor things like, I consider them minor, but then they may be very important too. This e-content development in 8 major languages. And it is to ensure that the talent of the people who probably didn't have the wherewithals and the means to study in public institutions or and who are not so good at English medium instructions, I think they will also benefit a lot if the e-content is developed in 8 major Indian languages. So that's where I think all of us in the teaching fraternity, especially, they will have to, develop their own e-contents. And by the way, these e-contents would then have to be of a certain quality. It can't be just, like what we generally teach in a face-to-face this thing, and especially in those institutions which are autonomous, and we just don't know what the teacher has actually taught in a particular class, and after suddenly you find that the mid-semester exam is being held or the end semester exam is being held. But here, at least, if there is a requirement that the e-contents will have to be, for every faculty, the e-content will have to be put on a platform so that the students can have access to these resources, learning resources. Finally, if you look at basically the underlying vision, you may call it. I mentioned about the knowledge economy, but it is also, taking care of, expansion would take care of equity and access. There are enough provisions in the NEP which are to do with the affirmative action. So that would take care of equity and access and making the education, available to everybody. This provision of, every district will have a large multidisciplinary university. So that will take care of this. So both equity and access are taken care of in this policy, but equally important is the quality. And I think this is because earlier in the face-to-face interaction, nobody knew, what is being taught, what is, except that, of course, the students give exams and so they get good grades, but that may not necessarily be a reflection of the competencies that person has acquired or internalized. So overall, I think personally, I feel that there are some very progressive provisions in this NEP. A lot of people may say, why allow private institutions, the luxury of having campuses in our country? But I think it's a very progressive provision. And the quality is being ensured because top 100 institutions, they will only be allowed to set up campuses here. And likewise, Indian universities or institutions, they can set up the campuses outside. I think it will, give an opportunity to all these institutions in India who claim to be, that they are excellent in, as far as the academic standards are concerned. They will have to prove their mettle if they have to succeed by setting up campuses abroad. Finally, I'll just take 30 seconds more. What the Prime Minister said was that day, he said that नीति तो हम लोगों ने बना दी, new education policy we have approved, but it is the Raniti which is going to be more important. How you implement, what strategy you will have. And as I said, this strategy would hugely depend on the state government's role also, because education, as I said, is a concurrent subject. So Niti and Raniti, I think we must keep in mind what Prime Minister said. So with these words, and I wish you very purposeful deliberations in your webinar, Professor Kulshrestha. Thank you so much for giving me this little opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. And why you have other engagements, you have to attend that. But but sir, one word you talk holistic. Basically, this webinar is also organized under holistic environment banner. Yes. I have started a program called Holistic Environment, and last year it was inaugurated. And the program is to develop holistic personalities. And under that program, Young Holistic Program in SES, I have started an outreach program. Mm-hmm. And that one speaker is also there, Young Holistic. He is the lead for Gyan. I have 30 activities in that. So okay. YoHo Gyan, YoHo debate, YoHo quiz, like that. So this holistic development already we have thought in our school, and this is passed by our special committee. Young Holistic Award also we have passed, and so the holistic approach basically is a new way of life, society.
Yeah, Professor Kulshrestha, just one little addition to what you're saying. The entire NEP is supposed to be India-centric. When you talk of a holistic development, the individual has to have a sense of pride in the Indian roots. And therefore, I think the civilizational strength of India is to be leveraged in our academic architecture. And that's what I think. If you look at the NEP, at every stage it talks about values, the aesthetics, your social, sensitivity to societal issues, environmental issues. In that sense, also the holistic development is meant.
Yes.
So global competencies, but with the India-centric mindset.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And now we have very famous speaker from DU, Professor Pankaj Arora. He is from CIE DU. Already he is giving a lot of talks about NEP. He work on pedagogy of political science, social science education. He has several papers and books. Basically, if I read this biodata, it's so lengthy, but without this waste of time. Yeah, you don't require. But, without wasting time, I now invite Professor Arora to say what are the provisions for higher education and other pertinent points out of this NEP. Professor Arora, please.
पंकज जी मुझे क्षमा करें क्योंकि मुझे एक्चुअली अभी 12:30 बजे एक और मीटिंग है मेरी.
थैंक यू वेरी मच आपको.
नमस्कार सर, बहुत धन्यवाद. थैंक यू.
मेरा काम काफी आसान कर दिया आपने. You covered almost all the points. Now we'll just try to fill in the gaps wherever there is possibility.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Meenakshi. Thank you, Joshi Saab. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Very good afternoon, everybody. Professor Umesh Kulshrestha, Professor A.K. Kulshrestha from Dayalbagh, Dr. Meenakshi, Mr. Yogendra Singh, the organizing committee members. Thank you for this opportunity to share screen with Professor Jain and Professor A.K. Kulshrestha. Sure, this is an opportunity to discuss education policy, and being a person of education, my interest is school education, teacher education. But since I have been advised to restrict myself to higher education, just now Professor V.K. Jain has presented a holistic picture of new education policy on higher education. I'll try to fill in the gaps wherever possibility is there. The way Professor Jain has mentioned the issue of autonomy. So, issue of autonomy is a beautiful feature of this policy, because this autonomy is not to educational institutions only, but this is to the students also, to curriculum developers also, and to faculty members also. This autonomy suggests that people should be given freedom to design and develop their interest areas into curriculum. The way Western countries people do introduce very unique areas, very specific areas as a program or as a course of interest, and students are welcome to attend it. And there is no rigid, hard and fast structure to seek approval of those new courses like our country have first your departmental bodies and then faculty bodies and proceeding to academic council and executive council. So this freedom to faculty members is a welcoming step. This way, Umeshji can develop program on holistic environments the way he was just mentioning. I have just recently developed a curriculum on democracy, youth, and education for MPhil level. Now, such courses can be introduced. See, if I am an my interest area is democracy and youth and higher education. So, how come a person of physics sitting in academic council or a person of language can suggest me the nitty-gritties of the curriculum? Largely, it is my domain, and within my institution, within the same discipline, I can seek feedback from few people. So one is this autonomy is to faculty members. Second, I suggested that this autonomy is to students. Just now, Professor Jain mentioned that this policy suggests multidisciplinary institutions. Now, this multidisciplinary institution give freedom to students also to choose specializations of their interest. Students are not bound to go with a structure or a rigid compartmentalized streams. Students are very much allowed to pick courses of their interest, their choice, their passion. Our Prime Minister said, follow your passion. So passion becomes centric when students are allowed to pick courses outside their stream. Like I must, not necessary that if I want to be an engineer, I should be going with PCM and PCB and for management studies, and some rigid structures were there under streams. So student will be given this freedom. I explain it in the following words, like if I have to decorate my bouquet of subjects, my degree, so it's my prerogative to pick flowers of my choice and make a beautiful bouquet for myself, which is going to be there, which is going to provide fragrance to me throughout my life, to my career, to my individual personality, as well as to my academic avenue. So second autonomy is to students. And third autonomy is to institutions, of course. Now, institutions will be, like Professor Jain suggested, no more affiliated colleges culture will be controlled or phased out gradually by 2035. And this culture of affiliated institutions is doing a lot of damage to higher education in the way my institution, a private self-financing institution or a trust-run college is affiliated to University of Delhi. So I am very confident that my students are going to get a degree of University of Delhi. So for me, my degree's credibility is not at stake. My students are there not for me, but for University of Delhi. So this channel, which has created a lot of lessons Raj in education and also corruption in education, you can see large universities with large affiliated institutions like Karnataka University has 800 plus affiliated institutions with them. Now these 800 plus institutions take whole energy and innovation capacities of the university in just maintaining them, in just organizing examination for them. Whatever they are doing is their cup of tea. University has lesser time to look into academic standards and look into academic arrangements, laboratory facilities, and stuff like that. So they are doing just affiliating the institutions and then organizing examination for them, declaring results on time. Now, because of this autonomy, this individual institution would also be under check by society. Society can seek their credibility in the market, in the society, in the academic world, and their credibility will attract students to join them. I can cite another example. The way we have a lot of private universities existing around us, even in NCR for the reason, I can easily count around 30, 40 universities which are there in NCR. But all universities are not doing equal good. So they are not attracting young talent equally. Few universities I would not name because those are private institutions, so I don't want to brand them here in this webinar of JNU and as a speaker of University of Delhi. But surely, hardly 5-7 universities are there which are known by academia, by parents, by society, by community. Other universities are struggling to maintain their own standards and struggling to establish their own identity. So I see this autonomy thing as a check on institutions to establish, to work on their own credibility, because they will be giving their own degree to the student. And if student feels their degree has no value in the market, job market, then student may not be going to them. And this would be a pressure to those autonomous universities. Another point, because a lot of infrastructural and regulatory provisions have already been discussed, so I would be coming to pedagogy now, because I am a student of pedagogy. Till date, we have wonderful people in university system, in colleges, who have beautiful content, very strong content with them. But a lot of people are not able to transact those content interestingly and effectively in their classes, because they are good researchers, they are good writers, but they do not understand. Of course, by experience, they do understand, but initially, for initial 10 years, they keep struggling how to connect with students, how to connect with the contemporary scenario, how to make their lectures interesting. So this policy suggests that each university teacher, number one, need to have a doctoral degree from 2021 onwards. So this is a quality improvement in higher education, that all teachers are mandatory to have doctorate degree with them before entering to university teaching. Number two, along with their doctoral degree, they are supposed to undergo a 8-credit course designed by concerned Department of Education in the university on pedagogy. So each university teacher is supposed to undergo a compulsory course on pedagogy, which would be of 8-credit value, before getting into the profession of university teaching or college teaching. So this will surely help teachers to understand learner psychology, understand learning theories, and to design and plan their lessons accordingly. This will surely is a hallmark change in policy which has been recommended for university teaching. So this way, university teachers will also be going through an important 8-credit course on pedagogy, which is again a welcoming step. Number three, Professor Jain suggested multiple entry and exit. I'll just elaborate that point. This multiple entry exit is another boon in presented in the policy, because in my own university, I can cite an example. Around 30% students drop out without completing their graduation during their course of period. So 30% people do enter into university system at first year, but for some reason or other, they are not able to complete their their graduation degree, and they drop out in between. Now, this is wastage of their individual resources, individual timings, as well as universities' resources and universities' facilities. Now, this policy suggests there would be a DigiLocker attached to each student's enrollment. So, whatever courses student is qualifying, passing through, credits for those passing courses would be accumulated in his or her DigiLocker. So, if I, because of the personal circumstances, which may be economic, which may be social, which may be family based, I am getting married to another city. In case of many girls, this happens. And so this DigiLocker is a safe custodian of my credits there. So those credits are transferable under CBCS curriculum structure, choice-based credit system curriculum structure. So I can continue my study in the new city where I'm shifting because of personal reasons, or if I have dropped out under economic compulsions to join some job, and after 2 years, 3 years, I want to come back and pursue my academics. So I am not supposed to start from scratch. I am supposed to start with those credits to my DigiLocker, safe, intacted for me. I can pursue over it. And then if I drop in between, I am not dropping it without any credentials with me. One is my credits to my DigiLocker, other is certification of those 1 year or 2 year in the form of a certificate or a diploma, which is again rewarding students for their efforts they have put in and the time they have put in into university education. So this research component, which is coming to this 4 year graduation, is somebody just now asking in the chatting box, what about international competencies and standards? So this 4 year graduation is meeting those expectations of society to make Indian universities graduation degree at par with international standards of undergraduate degree. Because 4th year is there, which would be largely encouraging people to go for their research, preferably in their own field. If I am doing engineering, if my interest is to banking, if I have interest into teaching. So similarly, those researches would be action research based, which is into my own interest area, suiting to my specializations which I have opted in my 4th year. So this hands-on experience connect with industry and market and multicultural, multi-institutional system will surely be helping researchers to develop aptitude for research at the same time. If they develop an aptitude for research, they can pursue 1 year of post-graduation degree and can directly come to PhD. And it was already mentioned that MPhil will be scrapped. MPhil will not be there, which many of us have been, especially in my discipline, education, where we are we are sending our students to 2 years of bachelor's degree, 2 years of master's degree, 2 years of MPhil, and then 5 years of PhD. So people got exhausted by the time they reached research level. So these 2 years of MPhil will be scrapped.
Sir, I have to interfere little. 2 minutes, please.
Yeah.
Time.
Okay. So, I'm okay. I'll try. Then last 2-3 things which I'll be quickly mentioning, and if need be, I can detail when open session will be there or another possibility is there. And that equity and inclusion in higher education. So this policy is suggesting like it's providing equity and inclusive opportunities to all through open and distance learning mode. The way policy is suggesting 50% GER by 2030 in next 10 years. Presently, we are around 27% of GER. So how can we make it almost double in next 10 years? So expansion is possible, not through regular institutions only. We need to strengthen our distance mode learning and distance mode, virtual mode education at the same time. This multidisciplinary institution, I would like to mention, this multidisciplinarity in the institutions will break the monopoly of merit in single discipline institutions like IITs, MBA institutions, social science institutions like JNU, Ambedkar University. The flavor of universities and colleges would be multidisciplinary. I see as a student of social sciences 2-3 important aspects there. One, this will break the hierarchy among disciplines. This hierarchy is whether we believe or not, whether we want or not, but this hierarchy is there. Sciences, management, social sciences, and humanities and languages and vocational education. This hierarchy already exists there. So multidisciplinary institution, I am a student of political science with an option in chemistry. I am a student of Hindi with my interest area in mathematics. So this will surely help people break this hierarchy of disciplines. At the same time, this will provide a culture of diversity among disciplines to the people around. So I will be developing my aptitude for multiple disciplines and I'll be narrating, discussing my work, my research, my discipline, my specialization with the people around, and that will surely help me develop a balanced aptitude towards academic flavor of my discipline as well as others' discipline. My last point, I'll not take more than 2 minutes now. My last interest area, which is teacher education. I myself is a person of teacher education. Professor Jain has already mentioned that this B.Ed 1 year or 2 year is going to be replaced by a B.Ed of 4 years, which is integrated B.Ed. Professor Kulshrestha from Dayalbagh will add on to this aspect, but I'll just be mentioning he is also a colleague from education. So this 4-year integrated BA B.Ed will not only help us to bring people to balance their content knowledge and pedagogy at the same time. The young graduates of class 12 will be coming to this 4-year program. The length of program itself is suggesting that for quality enrichment, we have multiple avenues and opportunities. And surely this is going, and 17 existing teacher education programs would be replaced with 3 major teacher education programs. 1-year B.Ed for the people who would be doing 4-year graduation or 1-year post-graduation. 2-year B.Ed for the short term, it will continue for 3-year graduates, and 4 years integrated BA B.Ed for the people after class 12. So this way, this policy is, and this is first policy which is giving emphasis on teacher education, because teachers are the people who can shape this policy at ground level, who can take it to the ground level and actually take it to the classrooms. The spirit of policy, if we want to reach to the classes, we must focus on preparation of teachers. This was pointed out by Prime Minister himself during the National Conclave on Policy. So this is these are few beautiful features of this policy in higher education and teacher education. I'll add on more if asked. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Arora. Many things you have, said first time probably, and we are very much, benefited with that. Your question I will take, because already we are late. I will take later on. Now, let us welcome Professor Arun Kulshrestha. He is a Professor of Education in Dayalbagh Educational Institute, Agra. Already very famous for B.Ed, and that is my also alma mater. Professor Kulshrestha is having a lot of experience. He is MSc Mathematics and teaching now science education. His areas of interest are teacher education, women education, primary education, and science education, and many others. He has written 5 books. Now I welcome Professor Kulshrestha.
Okay, thank you, sir. Professor Umesh. It is
Changes in education policy for teacher education. Professor Kulshrestha.
Okay, sir. Thank you. It is my great pleasure to be a part of this panel discussion on new education policy 2020. I am grateful to Professor Meenakshi Dua, Coordinator, ENVIS and D, School of Environmental Studies, JNU, to give me this opportunity to listen eminent experts, Professor V.K. Jain, Vice Chancellor, Tezpur University, Professor Pankaj Arora, CIE, Delhi, Dr. Meenakshi, Professor Dr. Meenakshi Dua, SES, JNU, and Mr. Yogendra Singh, SES, JNU. Although earlier expert has discussed and highlighted various issues in a very lucid manner, their views are also very important and valuable. My earlier speaker, Professor Pankaj Arora, has highlighted very important points and discussed many issues like autonomy, curriculum, freedom for faculty members and students, multidisciplinary institutes, equality and access, pedagogy, etc. So now,
Do you want to share?
as I will share, now as we all are aware that Government of India announced new education policy 2002 with so many new advancements, visions and features. Some of the features are, I would like to share PowerPoint presentation. One second.
Okay.
Is it visible? Sir, is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, it is visible. We can see. We can see. Please.
Yeah, it's very much visible, please.
Okay, okay.
The time to get PPT.
What, sir? Some key features of new education policy 2020: respect for diversity and local context, all in all curriculum, pedagogy and policy, equity and inclusion as the cornerstone of all education decisions, community participation, encouragement and facilitation for philanthropic, private and community participation, use of technology in teaching and learning, removing language barriers, emphasis on conceptual understanding rather than rote learning, and learning for exams, unique capabilities, recognizing, identifying them in each student, critical thinking and creativity to encourage logical decisions and innovations. Continuous review based on sustained research and regular assessment by educational experts. And many other features are also very well documented in the NP. Now, this is the vision of national education policy. Actually, I'm forwarding these all things. I will discuss more on the teacher education. Vision of national education policy: an education system that contributes to an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all, develop a deep sense of respect towards the fundamental rights, duties, and constitutional values, and sustainable development and living and global well-being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. Then I have some points which are discussed comparatively: new education policy versus new education policy 1986. Some points are, both the policies are primarily around three major dimensions, namely vision of the society, social purpose, and purpose of education. Both the education policies are developed keeping in mind the structure of the society. The policies of 1986 and 2020 have a vivid, distinct idea of Indian society. In the 1980s, world economies were largely local and some were in the transit phase. Comparatively, the world economies today are operating as complex global entities. In view of the same, the 1986 policy focused on standardization and equal opportunity to all. Then the new education policy 1986 was geared towards providing standard educational opportunities to various social groups. Therefore, its primary purpose was largely centered on the inclusion of disadvantaged groups, while the new education policy 2020 retains the focus on social inclusivity. It also hopes for the creation of special education zone in the areas having a significant proportion of disadvantaged groups. The NEP 2020 had a significant focus on skill-based learning. This is the special feature of this policy and employability arising out of it. The earlier policy stated more about understanding the world and human life. According to NP 1986, the aim of education is threefold, namely the overall development of the human resources, international cooperation and peaceful coexistence, development of socialism, secularism, and democracy. The present policy focused more on national development while creating citizens with knowledge, skills, and individual development. The curriculum in the new policy is more inclined to allow for critical thinking, discussion, and analytical learning, which aims to enrich India's talent and human resource pool. The NP 1986 created a pool of education and trained human resources who contributed to the value chain what NEP 2020 dreams of creating.
I have to interfere. You please go further on that major point of the ad.
Okay. After this point, I will go there. Dreams of creating human resource who will create value proposition. Although these all points are very clearly highlighted in the NP document, then I come to the teacher education. The provisions are made in NP for three types of teacher education, 3 steps: 4-year integrated B.Ed, minimum degree qualification for teaching. That includes students teaching at local schools by 2030. It aims at up to 2030. Then 2-year B.Ed degree course for applicants with an existing bachelor's degree in other specialized subjects. And the 1-year B.Ed course for those who have completed the equivalent of 4-year multidisciplinary bachelor's degree or have obtained a master's degree in a specific field. Then teacher education, all B.Ed programs will include training in time-based techniques in pedagogy, as Professor Arora also discussed about pedagogy, multi-level teaching and evaluation, teaching children with disabilities, teaching children with special interest and needs and talents, use of educational technology, and learner-centered and collaborative learning. Then multidisciplinary higher education institution offering the 4-year class integrated B.Ed program to also provide blended and ODL mode of open distance learning mode of teaching to students in remote areas. New and comprehensive national curriculum framework for teacher education by 2021. National Higher Education Regulatory Council to function as a single point regulator for higher education sectors, including teacher education. Teacher eligibility test at all stages will be strengthened, though their teacher eligibility test already exists, but that will be strengthened and empowered. Then empowering teachers, a technology-based comprehensive teacher requirements planning, forecasting exercise to be conducted by each state, career growth to be available for teachers within a single school stage, that is foundation, preparatory, middle or secondary. National professional standards for teachers by 2022, improving service environment through better infrastructure at school level, teachers to have more autonomy in choosing aspects of pedagogy in classroom teaching, academic leadership positions to be made available for teachers professional development, that may be of two types. Merit based tenure track system हो सकता है. Minimum 50 hours of continuous professional development. Then in the area of technology and science in education, will be created for the exchange of ideas on use of technology to enhance learning, assessment, planning and administration. All the aspects are covered here. Development of scientific temper and inclusion of knowledge and practice of human and constitutional values such as patriotism, sacrifice, non-violence, truth, honesty, peace, etc. A dedicated unit for the purpose of creating digital infrastructure, digital content, and capacity building will be set up in the ministry. Integration of technology will be done to improve classroom process to enhance the teaching learning process. Increased emphasis on mathematics and computational thinking throughout the school years. Inculcate mathematical thinking and problem solving through a variety of innovative methods, including the regular use of puzzles and games. Teaching of contemporary subjects at middle and secondary stages, artificial intelligence, design thinking, holistic health, organic living, environmental education, global citizenship education, and affordable, high quality, and energized textbooks to be provided along with free digital version on Diksha platform. There are so many platforms. Digital platforms and ongoing ICT-based educational initiatives to optimize and expanded. Expansion of existing e-learning platforms, Diksha, Swayam, Prabha, etc. Content creation, digital repository and dissemination, technology integration in teaching, learning and assessment, use of technology in teaching and learning, removing language barriers, curriculum and pedagogy to be transformed by 2022 to promote skill-based and minimize rote-based learning. Emphasis on digital literacy, coding and computational thinking, ethical and moral reasoning through art integrated, sport integrated, ICT integrated, and
Professor, I have to
Yes,
interview.
pedagogy.
Please, 2
Now-
minutes, please.
Only 2 minutes, I'm going to summarize. So in this way, I would like to say that regarding teacher education system in India, the vision of NP says that we want to produce vibrant and effective teachers empowered with new technological advancement, as the teachers are the shapers of new generation and country as well. Apart from it, the purpose is that the teachers should be grounded in Indian values, ethos, traditions, etc., with the latest knowledge of modern science and technological advancement. I think these all are the challenge to teacher education. How it will be fulfilled, it is to be think out and will depend on the Niti and Raniti, as said by Professor V.P. Jain also. Then in this way, now I'm going to conclude. I can say that new policy of education 2020 is designed in such a rigorous way, so it provides many opportunities for sustainable development and global well-being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. So I hope that new policy on education 2020 will be helpful in fulfilling the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister to be self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Overall, I feel that provisions made in new education policy 2020 are quite encouraging and beneficial. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Arun Kulshrestha. It's nice that every aspect you have touched, especially the B.Ed and Science and Technology aspect. And hopefully, it's a very. I'm getting very nice comments here. Very good explained difference between old and new education policy. Then very informative, useful session. Excellent. Then so it's a good feedback, and we have questions. Then I will attend later. But now we have other panelists. Dr. Meenakshi Dua. She is our colleague. She has recently written very nice and popular article on education policy. And now I request Dr. Dua. She works in the area of microbiology, environment, and she has interest in education and other child development. Dr. Meenakshi, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Welcome.
Great. Greetings to everybody, and thank you so much, Dean sir and the organizers, for having me here on this panel. I think it's an excellent presentation. I feel blessed to be speaking in the same panel as Professor Jain, Professor Pankaj, Arora, and Professor Kulshrestha. Thank you so much for those before me. You have really tossed here. And I request I will have to switch off my camera because my network is very weak. And the camera, my audio can break. So
Swati, before she disappears, take a picture.
Yes. Sir. Sorry, sir.
Swati, please take picture before she
I will come back,
closes
sir.
the camera.
After my presentation, I will switch on the camera again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, please.
Thank you. I just want a very clear audio, so I am going off the camera, please.
Okay.
All right. So because we are already running behind the time schedule, so I will be very quick. And like I said, that the speakers before me have made my task easier. They have touched upon the various points that I also had in my mind. So I'll just be brief with them. The only difference being that before me, a lot has been spoken about higher education, teacher education. I will concentrate on schools. So school education is where my passion lies. I'm a teacher at a university, but it is the schools which hold my attention because I believe that it is the school where it all begins from. Now, before I tell you what impresses me in the policy and what are my takeaway points in the policy for school education, I just want to give a very brief introduction. When I was reading through this 66-page document on National Education Policy 2020, what hit me was, the prime thing that held my attention was that the formulators of this policy, of the new National Education Policy 2020, they have realized a goal. They have given us, or they have recognized a means to achieve that goal. And then they have also stated, they also realize the benefits that can be reaped once that goal is achieved, right? So now the goal that they state is, taking an excerpt from the policy itself, I quote, India's continued ascent and leadership on the global stage in terms of economic growth, social justice, equality, scientific advancement, national integration, and cultural preservation. Unquote. So I feel that probably they have touched every aspect and they want to see India in the limelight, in the global limelight. That's how they envision the policy. What is the means? Second, what is the means that they have given us to achieve this goal? The means that they have given and that they realize is a universal access to quality education, equitable in character. So they have laid emphasis that education is the only means, and equitable universal education is the only means to see India in a global limelight in almost every dimension that's possible. And now third and last, what are the benefits that can be reaped? The benefits, again, I quote, is developing and maximizing our country's rich talents and resources for the good of the individual, the society, the country, and the world, unquote. So here in this para, what you see is the global field. going from local to global. So they want to maximize the country's talents and potential at an individualistic level, at a community level, at a national level, and then of course at a global level. Because it all begins at an individual, we talk about education at an individual. Now, for a minute, if we take out, and see the guiding principle that this policy is based on, the guiding principle is, again, I quote, "The purpose of the education system is to develop good human beings capable of rational thought and action, possessing compassion and empathy, courage and resilience, scientific temper and creative imagination, with sound ethical moorings and values. It aims at producing engaged, productive, and contributing citizens for building an equitable, inclusive, and plural society as envisaged by our Constitution," unquote. Now, this is the guiding principle. After reading this principle, knowing the vision that the policy has and the fundamentals that this policy rests on, I personally feel this policy does not leave any gap to be apprehensive of either the intent or the need behind this policy. More so when this policy is completely aligned to the goal 4 of the Sustainable Development Goals as laid down by the United Nations. So it is after 28 years we have this policy, and I welcome it wholeheartedly. In my view, it's a very well-rounded policy, and of course, nothing is 100%. This policy can also be viewed from multiple perspectives, and there are gaps that may need to be filled. But then, for a beginning, it's an excellent endeavor. Now, the question that we may put forward is the implementation. When we talk of implementation, like Professor Jain's mentioned, like Professor Pankaj Arora mentioned, the implementation, the best way to implement the policy is to combine the tops-down approach with a bottoms-up approach. Now, if we feel the policy comes from a government and the government is solely responsible for implementation, well, that's where we go wrong. I believe every stakeholder of this education system in India, in fact, those who are not the stakeholders, they also, and one way or the other, I feel the entire country is a stakeholder. So it is the liability, it is the responsibility for every individual, every stakeholder to do or to expedite his liability towards this policy, towards the implementation of this policy. Our platform could be small, our niche could be very small, but whatever we do little bit can be cumulative, and it can go a long way into seeing the implementation as is being envisioned by its formulators. Now, with this brief introduction, I want to quickly give you a bird's eye view of how school curriculum and pedagogy is seen through the lens of National Education Policy 2020. Now, when I give you a bird's eye view, I would specifically mention a few takeaways from this policy that have, hit a note with me, that have struck a chord with me. So when we see a bird's eye view through the lens of NEP 2020, what we see is restructuring, complete overhauling of a system that was existing or that is still existing till now. This system of 10+2 education has been restructured into a system of 5+3+3+4. 4 different stages: the foundational stage, the preparatory stage, the middle stage, and the secondary stage. Because of paucity of time, I'm not going into details of each stage. But what is worth noting here is, what is this restructuring going to do? What is it going to attain? This restructuring is going to entail or attain 2 most important things. First of all, it is going to bring down the stress levels by customizing curriculum for each age group. So we have each age group and here in 4 stages, 5+3+3+4, and both the curriculum and the pedagogy for each age group will be specified, it will be customized, and it will be implemented. Secondly, what this does is it gives equal importance to each stage of schooling. Now, I'm not saying that so far, each stage was not given enough importance, but it was only the secondary, the high level, the high schooling, class 11th and 12th, where all the focus of career building and the choice, the talent, and everything was coming in. Now, by doing 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, we are kind of spreading that stress and that importance out the schooling age. Now, talking about a few takeaways from this policy, in this restructuring. So the first takeaway that struck a chord with me is early childhood care and education, what is acronymed as ECCE. This ECCE, early childhood care and education, is clubbed with the foundational years, that is the age group of 3 to 8. So far, we have seen, for all of us, we have gone through this, that kids in pre-primary section, they would go to preschools, before 3, they would be not very formal ways of school. So I realizing early childhood care education, what is NEP trying to achieve? The NEP is trying to achieve a very customized and a very effective way to address these tender minds, these young minds which are now beginning education. Right? And what does NEP prescribe for this? NEP prescribes a play-based, activity-based approach. So it's a very fun approach with use of colors, shapes, numbers, language, puzzles, games, drama, music, etc., etc. And it wants to focus not only on the cognitive abilities, but also on the physical, socio-economic, emotional, ethical, communication, language, and numeracy skills for this age group. How does NEP plan to achieve it? Well, the second best thing that NEP is doing has done for this age group is that it proposes to develop a national curricular and pedagogical framework for early childhood care and education, which is abbreviated as NCP-FECCE. Now, this is a curricular framework that will be developed by NCERT. It will be developed by NCERT, and it will not be a guideline for just educational institutions. In fact, it will also be a guideline for parents to how to deal with this tender age. And how does it further intend to achieve it? By strengthening the Anganwadis, it's a pre-existing structures, infrastructure, the Anganwadis, the Balvatikas, the Ashram Shalas, and all these will be strengthened by teachers which are trained specifically in ECCE, and this will be monitored by the Cluster Resource Center. Secondly, the functioning of ECCE, the framework and the functioning of ECCE, the prime responsibility rests with the MHRD, which is now the MOE, the Ministry of Education. So by keeping the prime responsibility with itself, MHRD has ensured that the quality is maintained. Not only that, it has also looped in the Ministry of Women and Child Development, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. So if you see, it is trying to make it very inclusive, and NEP is not trying to leave any gap possible so far as this tender age group is concerned. The second takeaway point is the National Mission on Foundational Literacy and Numeracy. Now, this is very, very important. In fact, if you see the document, it says policy gives highest priority to National Mission for Foundational Literacy and Numeracy. In fact, it goes a step ahead and says, I quote, the rest of the policy will become relevant only if the most basic learning requirement is first achieved, unquote. So it realizes that unless foundational literacy and numeracy is achieved, it is not possible to build on education any further. All the other goals may remain unfulfilled. Now, to achieve this, foundational numeracy. So what is this foundational literacy and numeracy? It's basically the basic reading, writing skills, and the basic arithmetic, the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So to achieve these skills, NEP proposes to fill all the teacher vacancies at a foundational level. It wants to give increased focus on reading, writing, speaking, counting, and basic arithmetic. And it plans to have a special school preparation module. Before the kids can step into class 1, there's a special preparation module for 3 months where it will be made sure that they can do the basic reading, writing, and arithmetic skills. Apart from that, a national repository of digital infrastructure for knowledge sharing, which is called Diksha, is planned to set up so that the places where books cannot be reached, resources cannot reach, it is through this digital infrastructure that resource material can be reached. The third takeaway point is do away with rote learning and move towards concept-based learning. Now, so far, all of us sitting here today have gone through this education system since the time we have been into it through rote learning. I, as a student, I remember, and most of you, I'm sure you share my thoughts, that we have been into rote learning, and somewhere along the line, it would not, cease to impart stress on us. Why learn just abstract or just random, when all you need to know is the concepts. So this is what this national education policy plans to do. It intends to do away with the rote-based learning, and it intends to move only further to, it intends to promote memorization of only the concepts, that is learning for real understanding. So the principle behind is to make well-rounded individuals. So and the principle behind it, the goal behind is to promote critical thinking, interactive classrooms, discussion-based learning. So it is not just, learning the concepts, it is also exploring ideas and problem solving in a very deeper learning process. And for this, the policy proposes the National Curriculum Framework for School Education, the NCFSC, which will be again developed by the NCERT. Now, the fourth takeaway point that I feel the policy has, that struck a chord with me, is flexibility in subject choice. Before me, the speakers, Professor Pankaj and Professor Kulshrestha, already have mentioned how flexibility in subject choice, is so important. So I just want to take a little quote here. It says, the quote is unknown, the quote is probably given by Albert Einstein, but then there are question marks. So I don't know who has quoted it, but in quotes, everyone is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So what we are doing here is, unquote, sorry. Now what we were doing here till now is just making the entire mass, go into a herd of tsunami of academics. Go through all the subjects and everything. That's not necessary. I, as a student, may be interested in biology and music, or biology and dance, or biology and French, or chemistry and political science. Why not? So this is what this policy does. And to me, this is the biggest standout of the policy. As an educator, the flexibility that it offers is absolutely outstanding. Too much time on this flexibility concept since it's already been taken up. The fifth takeaway point that I feel the policy stands out on is integration of vocational knowledge and vocational subjects with the regular subjects. So it is not just the conventional streams of science and social science and humanities and all, but it is communication, aesthetics, health, nutrition, fitness, wellness, sports, digital literacy, gender sensitivity, citizenship skills, constitutional values, fundamental duties, current affairs, global citizen education. All of these are planned to be integrated into the curriculum as an elective. So if student is interested in studying his mainstream subjects along with, let's say, gender sensitivity or global citizen education, current affairs, or Indian knowledge systems, or fitness and wellness, he or she has a choice to take it up. Now, another point to note...
Meenakshi, I have to interfere now already.
Okay, give me a minute. Give me about 2 minutes.
Okay, please.
Another very important point that this policy has integrated is giving importance to mathematics and the computational skills. So it says that code and mathematical skills, computational knowledge and mathematical skills will be taught in very innovative fashions, so that for the coming century, for the coming age, for the coming times, it becomes very useful for the students. Now, the sixth takeaway point that I want to talk about is the National Curriculum Framework of education. This is a framework that is proposed by NCERT, and the outstanding features of this is reduction of syllabus, reduction of content in books, content that will be rooted in Indian ethos and knowledge systems. Sanskrit is supposed to be one of the languages, that is intended to be popularized along with other classical languages, and reducing the weight of bags. Now, personally, to me, reducing the weight of bags is an excellent thing that the policy could think of. Bagless days to intern with vocational experts like carpenters, gardeners, potters, and electricians, etc., for visits to monuments and historical places, and otherwise reduced baggage is an excellent initiative that the policy could think of. And the last takeaway point that I'm going to delve on is the assessment system that is included in the curriculum and pedagogy. Now, the policy, I'm very, very happy to note that the policy specifically recognizes the coaching culture. The coaching that has seeped into IT, and it has made all of us dependent on it. It realizes that it is a bane and not really a boon. So it proposes to minimize this coaching culture by easing the stress of examinations. The boards are set to be easier, the board pattern is set to be different, and there may be two attempts to boards, one the main attempt and one an improvement attempt. Apart from that, apart from summative testing, there will be formative assessment for core concepts and clarity, including a holistic report card. The last point in this assessment is the setting up of a national assessment center called PARAK, that is Performance Assessment Review and Analysis of Knowledge for Holistic Development. Now, this PARAK will set up standards and guidelines for assessment and evaluation across all boards and institutes, educational institutes of India. Now, with this, I end my presentation, my talk on the takeaway points, and I just wish to add two desirables, actually. From my end, two desirables that I want to see in the policy. Personally, for me, community service is something that the policy may want to include at some point in time. Right now it talks of community participation. I'm talking of community service. Community service needs to be integrated into the curriculum at some point, whether the middle school or the secondary school, at the undergrad level or somewhere. And second is, less is more should be the mantra. We should not go overboard with education, even if it is holistic. There is a shlok in Sanskrit which says, Ati sarvatra varjayet, means extreme of anything is not good. So even when we talk of holistic education, we should not go overboard with it. There are other things in life that the child needs to, a school child needs to enjoy. There are other aspects. And when we do too much of education, we rob the child of those aspects, those other precious gifts of life. So in conclusion, all I can say is that it's a very well-rounded policy with a very inclusive foresight and a very indigenously make in India approach, a vocal for local tool that can rescue our education system from its hitherto colonial inheritance and towards Atmanirbhar horizons. Thank you so much. These are my views. And if there are any questions with the permission, I could.
Thank you, Dr. Meenakshi. Very nicely explained, and also it gives, that you have really analyzed and you have justified your article here. I am very glad. Wonderful. You have got very nice comments, and some people want your email and some interaction. Now, let me say a few words about the Young Holistic Program. Mr. Yogendra Singh, he is lead for Yoga Gyan. So he is basically Young Holistic under Holistic Environment Program. We have outreach program. That program has around 30 activities, and sometimes some activity, other time other activities they conduct based on that. This is also already we have started before this new education policy, holistic development. It gives leadership, also the platform to remove your that hesitation or stage fear, and also some kind of creativity, critical thinking platform also it provides. So this way, Young Holistic Program has been very good for our school, and out of school also participants are coming and participating. Now I request Yogendra Singh to say a few words about his activity and also propose a vote of thanks to our speakers. Yogendra, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Yogendra Singh, pursuing my PhD in Environmental Sciences from JNU under supervision of Professor Kulshrestha. I will not go in much deep about new education policy, as eminent speakers, Professor Jain sir, Professor Kulshrestha sir, Professor Pankaj Arora sir, Professor Arun Kumar Kulshrestha sir, and Professor Meenakshi Dua ma'am, who have already discussed almost all the merits of new education policy and have delivered their valuable opinions. I would like to say that this policy was required appreciate the step of MHRD, who came with such a nice policy, which is focused on how to create jobs opportunity for the students. With these words, I on behalf of JNU-ENVIS team, along with Young Holistic Seminar of SES and entire team of ENVIS headed by Swati Singh and all participants. Let me call it fraternity of education policy here together, and on my own behalf, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all speakers for enlightening us with your valuable opinions about today's topic, which was in demand from last many years. A big thank you to Professor Jain sir for his efforts to summarize education policy, how is beneficiary in regarding of Indian values and holistic development of students with skill-based courses and digital infrastructure for development of universities with multilingual and e-content availability for the students. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Professor Kulshrestha sir for organizing such event for us. Further, we are grateful to Professor Pankaj Arora sir for demonstrating his opinion about how education policy is providing opportunity for freedom to students in choosing their area of interest with which they are able to complete their passion with help of many nice examples. And also he focused on how new policy is helpful in breaking the hierarchy and monopoly of institutes by applying multidisciplinary approach. I may like express our sincere thanks to Professor Arun Kumar sir for giving an excellent coverage toward new education policy through comparing the National Education Policy to 2020 with Education Policy 1986 and how it is helpful in sustainable and global development of students. I also wish to express my gratitude to Professor Meenakshi Dua ma'am for analyzing and briefing about National Education Policy 2020, how it is helping in school education development by starting from local level to global level, and from suggestions of implementation of National Education Policy. With these words, I am very thankful to all.
Thank you very much, Yogendra. And before discussion, there are two queries. One by Ankita Kato, that what about the tuition hubs? What the policy says? Professor Arora, can you comment on that? And other question is, what about recruitment? Whether recruitment policy will also be changed? Dr. Mani Singh.
Sir, what was question for me?
This is what about tuition hubs? न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में ट्यूशन वालों का क्या होगा, और रिक्रूटमेंट में इतनी लाइन लगी हुई है टीचिंग जॉब की और रिसर्च में, उनको कैसे सॉल्व करेगा?
See, tuition hub तो एक national concern बन गया है. It's a big challenge. And the way Meenakshi ji was suggesting now, assessment is not on rote memory based only, it's a comprehensive assessment of competencies. So when we say it is not of rote memory based only, then somewhere parents and community get a message that it's not about academic or cognitive aspect of individual's personality only. It's about the holistic personality. So this will surely help people to understand that education is not about cognitive, it's about holistic thing. So that way tuition hub may get some effective. And second is like lot of entrance tests which were there for different universities, different courses, different programs. Now for undergraduate admissions, NTA has been asked to conduct a common test for the nation. For B.Ed, the entire B.Ed in all parts of country would be through common entrance test at national level. So these common testing process will surely help people to get rid of tuitions and this competitive classes culture to some extent, I think. And this unemployment thing, this is an education policy, not an employment policy. But surely policy is trying to relate vocational education as part and parcel of the whole system, where people would be prepared through competencies and life skills and skill enhancement to go for self-employment rather than depending on job culture. So that way, policy is empowering people for self-employment and for competencies on different skills which are required for professions. Those two ways, this employment thing would be helped by the policy provisions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very nicely explained in brief. And once again, I thank you all for gracing this occasion, which was required to discuss, make it some kind of event for our students and faculty, and also it has given some kind of new way to discuss new queries what the students are writing. So once again, and it was nice, Meenakshi, Arun, Arora sir, and Swati, Yogendra, very nicely done. Thank you all. And we will see if we can have another session about that thematic. Let us see, and wish you all the best. And wish you hopefully the policy will be very engaging new professionals. It has a lot of opportunity for new professionals also. So it is a kind of new way. In fact, in the past 25 years around, we had very weak policy. Now this is quite strong, and hopefully the product by 2035 will have good products. But between this, we have to have these all kind of problems, the recruitment and all these jobs, first choice jobs, all kind of problems there. Let us hope 15 years later we will have very good holistic approach products. They will serve the society and community also. Thank you very much. Thank one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Namaste.
Thank you, Kulshrestha. Thank you for.
Thank you.
बहुत अच्छा लगा, बढ़िया रहा.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. चलना दिख रही. आगे सोनल ने भी ज्वाइन कर लिया. सोनल इज आल्सो देयर.